Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. I'm Joe Devine and I'm now joined by Seb Stafford-Bloor.
Hello, Joe Devine.
Hello, Seb. Tell us about who was on the podcast today and what we talked about, because it was a good one.
Yeah, it was really interesting. We had Razi Hassan, who's the owner and founder of a company called Beyond Entertainment, and Maziar Kouhyar, who spent 5 years at Walsall, also won an international cap for Afghanistan. We talked about British Asians in football and the difficulties they sometimes face in graduating through the game, getting into academies and first teams. Absolutely fascinating conversation, and I learned an awful lot as well, Joe.
Yeah, I liked the bit where you talked about pipelines, because it's easy to kind of pigeonhole these conversations as one thing or another, or as a cultural thing or not. But actually, when you dig into the specifics of it, there are some, less obvious before the conversation, more obvious after the conversation, blockages potentially along the way to professional football. And one of the statistics that comes up in this conversation is that of around 4,000 pro footballers in the UK, 10 or fewer, we're not quite sure right at the moment because there's players who come in and out, but 10 or fewer are British Asian, which makes up just 0.25% at the most, compared to around 7% of the population. So it's clear that there is something to be discussed here, and it was really enlightening to have Maz and Razi both on to do so. So we will get to that in a moment after I tell you about The Athletic. If you visit theathletic.com/Tifo, you'll be able to find that for a small amount of money each month, you can read a wonderful, wonderful football writing about the football, and then also 10 other sports. There are journalists dedicated to every Premier League club. We cover in depth some of the championship clubs too. There is Carl Anker, who's got a weekly column, and also, as it turns out, is writing a book with Marcus Rashford. Hello, Seb.
Go on, Carl.
That's exciting, isn't it? Well done, Carl.
Sure is. Yeah.
Very, very exciting. And also, I just love that guy. Carl, as well as I meant Marcus Rashford, but also Carl. Anyway, that's all. Go to theathletic.com/Tifo, and I believe you will enjoy what you find there. But for now, we will leave you in the warm hands and the cool embrace of Razi and Maz.
Maz, I'm going to come to you to start with. What are some of the stereotypes with which British Asian footballers are afflicted?
A lot of the stereotypes I hear is we're not physically strong enough, it's not our first career choice, or we don't have our parents' support. That's one of the main ones I hear.
When they say that it's not a main career choice, what does that mean, and where does that come from? I know I'm asking you to speculate a little bit, but that seems quite confusing to me.
I'm not too sure. I think it just comes from a fact where a lot of Asian households, predominantly, they are very focused on education. So people think that they can't focus on two things at the same time. It has to be one or the other. It can't be education and sport.
And you spent 5 years. I'm right in saying that you were at Walsall for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And you've described feeling, various things which made you feel uncomfortable in the dressing room. What was that situation like for you? Did you feel separate from the rest of the playing squad? Did you feel like you were being treated differently by teammates and coaches?
No, not at all. During training, during the change rooms, everything, I felt part of the squad. I had a lot of friends. I was close with everyone, so I felt close with everyone. I never felt left out or anything like that.
Razi, if I come to you, like, how common a situation is this? Like, how often is the British Asian footballers report the same kind of things that Maz has just reflected on there about, different career paths and parent support? Is this is that a regular occurrence?
I don't think it is. We know that the challenges or barriers, if you want to call them, they're quite well documented. Some of them are issues, but some of them aren't. I think there's young British Asian and non-young British Asian players that are kind of, in the pathway trying to make it professionally, that have challenges in all different shapes and forms. It is frustrating, as Maz mentioned, that there continues to be this unconscious bias around, are they physically fit enough? Are they physically and mentally capable enough to progress on to becoming professional footballers? And that's one of the things that we're very keen at BE to kind of break down those notions and debunk those myths, because those things aren't barriers. A young British Asian player is as capable physically and mentally. It's just that the pathways need to be more structured in order to see them go through.
That's going to be my next question about pathways. But before we do, can we just in yours, we flesh out what Beyond Entertainment is and what its aims are and what its future objectives are set to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So BE Beyond Entertainment is an organisation that's been set up to cater for existing and future talent within football, boxing, and MMA. We may go beyond that into other sports, but at the moment, that's kind of our focus area. It's our area of expertise. Within the boxing space, we are looking at doing some very interesting things, and I look forward to speaking to potentially yourselves and others also about some of the things we're looking to do there. We are quite ambitious in what we're looking to do. We think boxing is quite undemocratic in the sense that it's only really the elite fighters that make good money. Other than that, there's world champions in this today dotted around the world who aren't able to make a living from the sport. So we're looking to rectify that, and we have some exciting plans in place, and we'll be revealing them in due course. MMA is simply something that just can't be ignored anymore because of the numbers. The attraction is a new generation of fans fight fans. So that's an area we're looking to focus, and we've got some really interesting talent there also. And then, of course, football. We are an organisation that is keen to work with all stakeholders across football at all levels. We're engaging actively now with organisations from the FA, the PFA, the FSA, Kick It Out, across to building relationships with clubs. We're developing a scouting network. And whilst we're happy to work with all potential talent, because of our own backgrounds as British Asians, and because of the scope of the challenge, we're positioning ourselves a little as the agency to represent the underrepresented. Hence our kind of appetite and our involvement on supporting young British Asians and other underrepresented communities to break into professional football.
Let's quantify that underrepresentation, because I've got a statistic here from the Football Supporters Association you mentioned. Currently around 4,000 professional footballers in the UK, and only 10 are British Asian. My mathematics is not good enough to put that into a percentage, but I imagine it's less than 1, obviously. Now, what interests me about that is where does the blockage occur? Like, what is the obstruction here to British Asian talent maturing into British Asian professionals? What is I suppose, Maz, you're probably the right person to ask this in the first instance. How did you arrive at Walsall originally?
At Walsall, I was playing football with some of my friends at the local power league, so just 5-a-side, and I was one of the younger ones playing, and one of the lads was watching, and he just happened to have a contact number for a coach at Walsall, and he mentioned it to me. He said, I can call him, see if he can give you a trial and just bring you down for a training session maybe. And then that's how I got I was able to play in front of Walsall, so it was quite lucky. I never got scouted at a game or anything like that. It was just someone saw me playing and called them up.
So, Maz, can I interrupt and just ask, like, was it something that you were looking for, or was it just a coincidence and it happened? Did you have hopes of being a professional player, or did it just occur?
No, I always wanted to become a professional football player, but like I can't force agents or scouts to come watch me play. So in that circumstance, that was very lucky. It was a coincidence that he was there at the right time, and I was playing and he was watching my pitch. He could have watched any of the pitches, you know what I mean? But yeah, since young, I always wanted to be a professional football player, but I just didn't have the right contacts to get trials myself.
I mean, is there a problem with the supply of British Asians into British football, or is there a fundamental reason? I'm going to imagine there's probably more than one, but why you don't see the kind of the right sort of volume, a representative volume in British academies or in British first teams? Let's go back to this. Where does the blockage and the plumbing occur here?
So that's a very interesting point, and it's something that I've been discussing at length over the last week or so, since we released the findings of the survey with the FSA. So We know that in terms of participation at grassroots level, there is significant participation from male and female, so young boys and young girls are playing football on a very large scale. In fact, and I'll need to look at that again, but there was some research published by Sport England, which I think said that young Bangladeshi boys account for the most in some ratio or proportion of young people playing football. So participation at grassroots is not an issue. Playing for local teams, Sunday league, that sort of thing is, I think, where potentially you begin to start seeing some level of challenge. So, Manisha Taylor, the QPR youth team manager, spoke to the BBC recently, and she talked about how when she was growing up, her brother was playing cricket at Middlesex. So her parents weren't able to take her to training for football. And it was as simple as that. Well, we have to take your brother, so we can't take you. That has changed. You now have second, third, fourth generation parents of Asian heritage with kids, and they're a lot more focused and concentrated on supporting them. There's a young chap I spoke to the other day, Dean Mirza, who plays for Beaconsfield, and his mother is fully supportive of him and saying that he loves the game, so I'm going to support him. So there are some challenges at that level, but we are seeing that they're becoming less and less. The crux of it, I think, the real blockage, as you put it, is at both scouting and coaching level. Now, Maz was fortunate in that he was spotted by someone who put him in touch with the club. So he was able to, that was his kind of pathway in. But generally speaking, we know for a fact, and this was mentioned by Sanjay Bandari, the chairman of Kick It Out, where he said that there is a bias from scouts. There is, in some cases, an unconscious bias, or in some cases, we're seeing the manifestation of age-old stereotypes, such as, why should I pay any attention to your son or daughter? They're only going to go on to become a lawyer or accountant or doctor. So they are some of the challenges. So what we're keen on doing is twofold. Number one is we want to see the increase of scouts of a BAME background. But equally important, I think, it is to educate all scouts on the importance of being as level-headed and as conscious as possible of not being biased when it comes to spotting talent. So I have a story that I'll share with you. And I was, I love football. I was never particularly good at it, but I used to play on a Wednesday night with my friends who used to play for a local team. And I would, I'd train with them on a Wednesday night, and we'd have a kickabout and score a hat for the goals and whatnot. And that was it for me. That was it. I never really took it beyond that. And one week, a cousin of mine joined, and at the end of the game, he sort of said to me, "Oh, can you ask the coach if I can play on Sunday?" And I remember thinking to myself, what? We don't do that, do we? We just come here for a kickabout on Wednesday. The idea of actually playing in a game of football on a Sunday was just alien. And it kind of made me think the coach has never, ever actually paid any attention to me. So I think, and that was 30 odd years ago, 25, 30 years ago. And I think in some instances, those biases do still exist. And they're being broken down. We're starting to see them being broken down. There's a number of young players of that heritage background that are coming through now. And one of the other things that we discussed and we talked about is the need for a role model. And once we have a role model, someone that is playing for a big club, top six club, is performing week in, week out, has a huge public profile, then I think that disassociation that currently exists with Asians and football will begin to hopefully dissipate, and we'll see a more level playing field and more acceptance.
Razi, can I ask you specifically about the idea of a role model, because it's something I've my girlfriend is a teacher, and at the moment she's working on a sort of diversity and inclusivity drive at the school as it relates to the books that are available for the primary school children to read. she accounted for them all at the end of last year and said that the number of books that had a person of colour or ethnicity as the main character or as part of the protagonist of the book was way smaller than the number of people that they actually had of that background within the school. And I think that's probably a fairly common story, right? So we had this conversation at the time about the idea of a role model. Now, like as a white male living in England myself, it's not something that ever occurred to me as a child when I was growing up, because obviously that need was catered for. And I'm sure that the answer is obvious, but it's very interesting to me. Like, what is it, do you think, specifically about the idea of young people having a role model that they can recognise that it's just an inspiration? Is it that they see themselves in that person, that they suddenly think that something is possible or open to them that they didn't previously believe was?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is that notion of association. That person is perhaps the same skin tone as me. He is the same faith as me. He is someone that's gone against the odds and overcome them, and is now on kind of the big stage and is performing, and it I guess a good example of it, a very recent example. I don't know if you heard. I'm sure you would have heard the radio conversation that Lewis Hamilton had at the weekend with the Mercedes team.
Yeah, right. I don't.
When he just clinched the title, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a particularly fan of F1. I'm not a huge fan of Lewis Hamilton, but when I heard him, I welled up, and all of a sudden he became, for me in that moment, he was a role model. He was someone who was at the absolute peak and pinnacle of his sport, and just in the matter of a few words, he was able to kind of, evoke such emotions from me, at least anyway. And I'm sure so many people around the world or wherever would have felt that same way. So I don't think it's important for a role model to be necessarily the same, in terms of appearance and everything. I think specifically where football is related, the reason why a British Asian professional footballer role model would be so powerful is because the fact that there is this resistance. I'm not saying it's an intentional resistance, but there is this barrier to British Asians breaking through into professional football. So eventually when someone does come through that is a real star, not to take anything away from the current players, but someone that has that persona and that profile and everything, it would just really, in my opinion, it would make a difference. I spoke to TalkSport the other day, and I was talking to Alex Crook, and I did say to him that just a bunch of kids, training on a midweek or whatever it might be. If a young British Asian coach goes out onto the pitch to train them, and there is a British Asian footballer that is at the top of his game and performing really well, they will associate that individual with that player. Similar background, so it means this guy knows something about football. It's the same kind of the Mo Salah effect, I guess. If you're having a kickabout and your coach turns up and your coach is Egyptian, automatically kind of, you will associate him with Mohamed Salah, simply because they're from the same country or whatever it might be. So sometimes it can be at that very basic level, a role model can have an impact. But I do believe that, we're not too far off seeing someone break through. And when it does happen, I think it will, I'm hoping it will kind of really open the floodgates for players, young players looking to break through.
That Mo Salah thing is really interesting because we back during Euro 2000, we were at school. I remember us playing outside. There was a Portuguese guy in my year, and obviously it's not as if Portugal is lacking for football culture. Yeah. But the day after Portugal beat England 3-2 and Luis Figo scored that outrageous goal from 35 yards. All of a sudden, Rodrigo became Figo, and everyone thought he was just brilliant. Honestly, he was absolutely rubbish as a footballer, but all of a sudden he had this weird gravitas that he didn't have before, and people paid him attention, so it's true.
Hello, I'm Ian McIntosh, and despite literally spending months of my life playing Football Manager, I'm still terrible at it. That's why I'm launching the Football Manager Show, the latest podcast from The Athletic. Every week, I'll speak to the people who know the game best, the people who make the game. We'll take a proper look at things like training, recruitment and tactics. We'll try to answer your questions. We'll do everything we can to keep you eager to play just one more game and altogether less inclined to quit without saving. The era of Cherno and Tonton and dear sweet Michael Duff is over. the new Football Manager is bigger, better, more challenging than ever. And I need some help. If you do too, you can subscribe now. Just look for the Football Manager Show by The Athletic, wherever you get all your other podcasts. It starts in November, and knowing my track record, I'll be unemployed by December.
Maz, can I just ask about the circumstances under which you left Walsall? What happened there? What took you out of the game?
Obviously, like I said, Walsall, they did a lot for me. I got to live my dream of becoming a professional footballer. I got my debut, everything like that. But during the time there, I sustained 2 knee injuries. I done my meniscus on my left knee, and then my ACL and both my meniscuses on my right knee. And while I got injured towards the end of my contract, I had like 2 months left of my contract, and I got injured with my ACL, and I was out for maybe 10 months. But of course, 2 months into my injury, my contract was over, and Walsall, we just got relegated that season. We had new management, and they just kind of said to me, yeah, we're not going to offer you anything. We'll get you back fit. As part of the PSA rule, any club you get injured under contract, they have to get you back fit. And so yeah, they just said, we'll get you back fit, but we can't offer you another contract. And then that's it. And then they did say to me, once you get back fit, we'll have a look at you. But when I got back fit, it just ended up not happening. I think at the time, it was midway through the season and things like that. And they just said, yeah, you can go to other clubs.
Which do you go for trials at other clubs?
It was just before lockdown, and I was speaking. I sent some messages and emails to as many clubs as I could, but no club really got back to me. And that was a bit shocking for me, because someone that's played League One football, I thought I'd have at least Clubs Conference Prem, Conference North that would want to give me a chance, just coming to training or something. But I had no clubs reply to me. I don't know why, but I had no clubs reply to me. And then lockdown happened, and during lockdown, I got a job working at Toyota, and it was the first ever time I had a solid job that was, this is a safe option, let me just go for that. And then I just started working. But ever since working, I've wished that I didn't give up so easily. So this is the whole point of doing all these interviews and stuff, is to bring a lot of awareness on ages in football and racism in football, but also to kickstart my career again as well.
Yeah, that's my next question, actually. How do you think of the game now? I mean, not Walsall and not any of the clubs that you rated for trials. Like, how do you think of football as a sport in this country now that you've kind of taken a step outside of it?
I've still got the same mindset towards football I've always had. It's ever since I was younger, all my older relatives, all my cousins, all my friends in my area, they've always just said, you have to work harder than everyone else. That person next to you, you can't be as good as him, because if he's an English lad, they could get picked ahead of you. You have to be much better than them to get ahead of them. And I've always had that mindset where if you want to get in the team, if you want to get the start, you have to be better than your opposition. No one's going to give you a helping hand. And I've still got the same mindset, really. Like, I still love the game, and I just know hard work's going to hopefully get me to where I want to be.
Does your working full time now prohibit your training, presumably, to make it like, are you? I imagine for players in your situation who have played professionally, or even some played semi-professionally, out of work in terms of football, so they have to support themselves. They go back into work, and then that kind of presumably makes it like quite a difficult cycle to break out of, because you have to earn money, but also you have to be fit enough to be able to go and do trials and stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Working full time, you don't have time to go training. You don't have time to go to the gym and things like that. It does make it very difficult. But that's why I know for a fact I can't work full time as a car salesman and play football. So I'm gonna have to give up one of them. And if I want to do football, I'm gonna have to take that risk and give up a full time paying job and a chance of playing football.
Razi, what can a company like B do to make the pathways into the game easier? Because we talked a little bit about some of the assumptions that exist in the game, some of the stereotypes, some of the attitude to scouts. Like I read as part of the press that came through to us, there are some scouts that kind of look away from British Asian players because they assume at some point in the season they're going to have to fast, and that's going to be prohibitive to a career. Like these are the sorts of cultural assumptions that are really deeply rooted. What can What can be done to actually defeat them, other than waiting for generations to pass?
So we've got a pretty clear plan in terms of what we're looking to do. We are hopefully looking to potentially work with the FA. As you'll be aware, the FA have an overarching kind of diversity and inclusion strategy. Within that, they have a strategy which is kind of specifically for increasing participation and developing professional footballers within the Asian community. So, we're looking to work closely with the FA on that, and to help essentially deliver what it is that they're looking to do. So we have a plan whereby we're really going to give this a go, okay? And what that basically means is, as an organisation, we are in the process of developing our very own scouting network, which is our National Athlete Development Network. That will consist of scouts up and down the country. And whilst those scouts will be mandated to look for all talent, there will be a specific focus on identifying players from a British Asian background. So that's one step. So through that network, we will be in a position where hopefully we'll have a bit of a conveyor belt of potential talent coming through. At that point, and something that I'll be working very closely on is developing my relationships with football clubs. So and local FA, community FA. So like, I'm based in Hertfordshire, so I'm looking to develop a relationship with the Hearts FA. And once we have those players and we've got the relationships with the football clubs, then we hope to be in a position to be able to get players into trials, spend some time with the clubs and the teams, so that they have all the support they possibly need. One of the things that we identified, and one of the reasons why BE has come to life, I guess, and Maz can probably vouch for this, is that there was a lack of support for young British Asian footballers coming through from a professional perspective, i.e. In terms of intermediaries and representatives, people that could help them and support them along the way. When Maz had the incidents that he had at Walsall, he didn't really have anyone that he could turn to and talk to. So had he had an organisation like us or myself, he could have turned to us and said, well, look, so-and-so has said this to me. I don't want to go to the club and speak to them because I want, in his case, I want more minutes. I don't want to be seen as a troublemaker or whatever it might be. What do I do? Okay. And then at that point, it would be our responsibility to approach the club and to say to them, look, this incident has occurred. This is what's happened. Let's just kind of, let's clear it up so that this sort of thing doesn't happen again. And then we move on. And that lack of representation at the moment, I think, is one of the issues that has been and is one of the holes that we're looking to plug. But in terms of your question as to what we can do, we have a very clear pathway. We're looking to identify talent. We're looking to work with all the stakeholders. We're looking to build relationships with football clubs. We're looking to get numbers in academies up. At the moment, I believe there's something like six players of British Asian origin in I think across. We have to correct me on this. Either the Premier League or across all leagues, just six, and that's not a lot. So we need to get those numbers in academies up, and then once they're in those academies, we want to work with those clubs, the coaches, and the setups within the clubs to make sure that they understand the cultural sensitivities, the nuances, and the things that could potentially affect, a player of a certain background, just to make sure that they're mindful of and that they have a relatively, smooth journey through the academy system, and then who knows, hopefully onto the first team.
Maz, what were some of the things that affected you during your time in the game? Some of the things that were said.
A few incidents that happened during my time at playing football. For example, one of the incidents I can mention is when we used to get on the coach to Luton's the area that we would go to where the stadium was a predominantly Asian area. So while we're on the coach, when we're driving through it, some of the lads would be like, "Oh, Maz, look, there's your uncle, there's your auntie," little things like that. But that to me it was just banter. It's been part and parcel of me growing up playing football in football environments. It's just the banter you get, and maybe it's not right, but you just have to accept it. You have to, if you make it a big deal, then you're not going to be one part of the lads, if you know what I mean. So that's kind of the situation, some of the things that would happen. But like I said, none of the lads would do it in a malicious way. And me personally, to be fair, it didn't affect me too much. And yeah, like I said, you want to be part of the lads. You don't want to be the one that can't take a joke. You don't want to be the one that's telling them, "Oh, can you stop saying that?" And then they don't really want to. Then slowly it would affect your relationship with the team. But things like that, it was never a big deal to me. The one thing that did happen to me that it did kind of affect me quite a bit was we was in the training ground just playing, warming up, and one of the lads said to me, mentioned something about me being a terrorist, and at that time I did try to laugh it off at the start, and then he said it again, and then I said something back to him about how he's trying to make people laugh. He's already said it once, he doesn't need to say it again. And then we ended up arguing with each other. We had a little bit of a row. The lads came and split up. The thing that affected me the most about that wasn't the actual lad that said it, because he came and apologised to me after. It was the fact that there was a member of coaching staff there witnessed it all. And I thought afterwards I'd get called into the office, or I'd get called just to see how I'm doing or something. But nothing happened. It just got ignored, or I don't know what happened. But yeah.
Yeah, that is strange, because you'd have expected in that situation someone to just go, "Oh, Mazi, you're right, and have you sorted this out, and this isn't to happen again." But you didn't get any of that, presumably.
No, I didn't get any of that, so it just got ignored, really. And that kind of made me feel even more. Oh, I'm not going to mention anything, because if they wanted to do something, they would have called me into the office. So, and at that time, I wanted to get into the first team. I wanted to get more minutes for the first team. So I just didn't want to be seen as a troublemaker or anything like that. So I just decided to let it slide.
But you actively looking for a way back in at the moment into the game?
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the reasons why I'm with B now, and with Razi. Hopefully, with the help of him, I can get some trials and just get a second chance in football. And another thing that made me really want to work with Razi was the fact that in that situation, if that did happen again, I would have someone to speak to. Like, of course, you can always go home and speak to your parents, but I didn't think my parents would be able to do anything at club level. Like, they don't know a lot about football to know how it works, how the FA works, how things like that. But I'm sure if something like that happened again, and I spoke to an intermediate that can sympathise with you and know where you're coming from, you've got more of a leg to stand on and more backing.
And presumably you're fully fit now. You're ready to go if an opportunity comes up. And so if there are clubs out there, and I have to believe there are, because clubs up and down the country are kind of cutting their playing staff, and you are ultimately an international midfielder. You've been capped by Afghanistan, haven't you?
Yeah. I've been had a full cap and things like that. Yeah.
So who would a club get in touch with if they want to invite you for a trial?
They could get in touch with me. They could get in touch with Razi. As simple as that. We'll just arrange a time and date, and that's it. I'm quite a shy person. I don't like to big myself up a lot.
Stop that right now. Stop it. There's no room for that. Come on.
He shows them on the pitch. That's what he's saying.
I tell you what, Joe, this is how we'll do this. Okay, so you remember the old attribute scale from Football Manager, 0 to 20? Like 3 attributes that we're going to pick. Like your midfielders, so passing, what are we going for between 0 and 20? And don't be shy. Don't give yourself like an 8. I want to hear 20. Yeah.
Passing. I've got good vision. I can find a pass. I can pass with my left and right foot. So I would give myself a good attribute in passing. Like in midfield, I'm a hard-working player. I've got a good stamina. I'm light on my feet. I'm good at changing direction, agility, things like that. But my touch is very good. I can use both my feet. Like a lot of the times, in training and when I'm playing with random people, they'll say something like, "Don't show him in on his left," whereas I'm not left-footed. I'm right-footed. But because maybe I scored 1 or 2 goals with my left, or they're thinking, "Oh, okay, show him on his right," but I'm right-footed as well. So I can use both my feet well. And the main thing that I feel my main attribute is I'm always willing to learn. I never think I'm too good to learn or too good to listen to anyone. And that's one of the things that I bring to the club. Like if member of staff or players give me advice, I always try to take it on and help myself improve.
That sounds great.
That sounds like
just need a little bit of prodding. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this has been really enlightening, guys. And obviously, we do know that there are a few coaches and managers out there in the National League who listen to the podcast and watch Tifo. So if there is anybody out there who's after a 2-footed midfielder who's willing to learn, which I have to believe there is, then get in touch with Maz or Razi, or drop us a line and we'll forward you to them.
Incidentally, also a lapsed goalkeeper. I'm available too.
No one's in. No, honestly, I've seen you walk, Joe. You well,
you don't need to walk, do you?
You couldn't
That's the
even
whole
do
point.
Power League. So stop that immediately. It's just.
How dare you?
No. We've both had a bad lockdown.
So can I just add on that, if there is, just to second what you're saying, if anyone is interested out there, then please, you can find out more at beyond-entertainment.co.uk or get in touch on info@beyond-entertainment.co.uk.